Martin, while on neighborhood watch, Mr. Zimmerman states that it was for self-defense.
Yes.
Okay. And then you stated your sources was the radio?
Yes.
Okay. And also the second part, I couldn't, Phillips something?
Oh, Jim Phillips, on the Phillips farm.
All right. Tell me, did you have any, in terms of how you gathered this information from the media, TV at all?
No, I don't follow the news at all,
Okay.
ever.
And how about the newspaper?
No.
How about online in terms of the newspaper or TV stations at all?
No.
Any national news at all?
No. I
Okay.
try to stay uninvolved, I guess.
I'm sorry?
I said I try to stay uninvolved.
Uninvolved?
Mhm.
Okay. And tell me about, I'm not aware of 104.1, what kind of radio station? Is it a talk show type thing?
Yes, it's all talk radio.
Okay. And how often do you listen to that on the, is that all the time at like work? Or
No, it's
on
just
the-
like if I'm, if I happen to be in the car and it's around that time, I just pop it on.
Okay.
But not regularly.
And then Phillips Price, is it?
No, it's the Phillips File.
Phillips File.
Yes, that's the name of his show.
Okay, I apologize, I couldn't read your writing. Tell me a little bit about that.
He's talk radio. I guess he's pretty popular at like around rush hour.
Okay,
He talks about current events, things like that.
and those would have been your two main sources of gathering information about the case?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you gathered this information, was that at the beginning, back in February, right after it happened in 2012, or was it more recently?
It was back in the beginning, like right after it happened.
Have you kind of kept up with the case as it's progressed through the stages of, the murder and then arrest and then now through court proceedings?
No.
Okay. Tell me, as best you can recall, and I know you've notated here in terms of the fact that Mr. Zimmerman, in terms of shooting Mr. Trayvon Martin, what else do you recall about the case itself in terms of the exposure you've had?
That there was a lot of, I guess, racial tension. That was
Okay.
the gist of what I could, I guess, figure out.
Okay. Anything else you can remember? Do you remember any photographs at all?
I remember, I think his mugshot.
Okay.
That was about it.
Okay. The mugshot, since you haven't seen it on TV, was that online or just on TV in passing? Or?
That was in TV in passing.
Okay. How about any other photographs that you recall?
A picture of Mr. Martin, and that was at like around the same time.
Okay. And the mugshot, when people refer to mugshots as anything, what kind of photograph was it? Do you remember what it looked like of Mr. Zimmerman?
I believe there was some bruising.
Some bruising?
To the face.
Okay. And I gather you stated you have not come to an opinion as a result of what you've been exposed to. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So the photograph that you saw of Mr. Zimmerman, some bruising to the face, you didn't come to any conclusions as a result of that, or did you?
I'm assuming there was an altercation, but I mean, that's...
Okay. That's what we're trying to find out. We don't know what's in your mind, so we're having you talk to both sides in terms of what you remember and whether your impressions. So you assume that there was, what did you say, some altercation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you're doing a great job of answering, but unfortunately, when we talk, sometimes we just go, uh-huh, and
Correct.
the court reporter needs to take down the answers of a yes or no.
Apologize. Okay.
No, that's all right. We all do it. So I can understand what you're saying, but the court reporter needs to make sure she gets it.
Okay, correct.
Okay. Do you remember anything else about the what occurred between Mr. Zimmerman and Mr. Martin in terms of the shooting or anything like that?
No.
Okay. How about anything after that in terms of his arrest or anything like that? Do you remember anything about that?
No.
Okay. You mentioned racial tensions. Can you expand on that a little bit? Tell us what you mean by that.
Following that, I remember a couple of my friends on Facebook posting like their opinions and comments about it.
Okay.
And that was about it. But I know that it was leaned more towards racial than anything.
All right. Did you place any significance on that one way or the other?
No, I just blew it off because people just like to just give their own opinions on things without knowing.
Okay. Did you respond at all to your Facebook friends when they posted that on there? Did you say, no, that's not true, or yeah, I agree, or
No.
Did you respond at all to that?
No, I normally don't respond to things like that because I'm so uninformed, so I just I read it and I went on.
Okay. And then you also mentioned, was the people you talked to, and when I say talk, I mean, I know on Facebook sometimes I guess you interact, were those close friends of yours that posted that, or just friends that, and what I understand from Facebook, I don't do it with my wife and kids do, that some people, you can have close friends kind of thing, or that you can have anybody in the world potentially.
It was people that I used to go to school with back in high school, so I guess for now we're acquaintances, because I don't like run into them or have lunch with them or anything. It's just people that I've known from the past.
Okay, so they're not friends that you interact with, what you would consult friends in terms of socially meeting with them?
No.
Those are internet friends, I guess you'd call them.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did that sway you one way or the other on the case, their opinions about it?
No.
Were their opinions favorable to Mr. Zimmerman or favorable to Mr. Martin, or just commenting?
They were favorable to Mr. Martin.
Okay. And those opinions did not sway you one way or the other, is that
No.
correct?
That's correct.
How about the radio, the 104.1, and then also the other talk show person? Did those opinions or commentary in on both of those sway you one way or the other in the case?
No.
Were those on 104.1, the commentary, was it favorable to Mr. Martin, or was it favorable to Mr. Zimmerman, or was it just kind of stating the facts and then throwing opinions in there?
The way I perceived it, it was kind of going both sides, like there were just a bunch of people like throwing in their opinions, so it was...
Okay. So was it people just calling in and saying, you know, this should happen, or this shouldn't, or I believe one side, I believe the other? Is it just kind of everybody interjecting themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry.
So you're probably prepared then to sit as a juror because you'll be hearing evidence one way or the other.
Yes.
In other words, are you prepared to, if you're asked to sit as a juror, and if you make you have the privilege of sitting as a juror, are you able to set aside whatever commentary you've heard on the radio, people's opinions and all that, and make your decision only on what actually happens in the courtroom?
Yes.
Can you do that?
I can do that.
Is there any doubt in your mind that you can be objective to both sides in this case?
No, there's no doubt in my mind.
We know we talked about the Facebook friends. Have you personally talked to anybody about the case other than just in passing? And what I'm saying is, have you had a discussion with people in the community, friends or family or co-workers, in which you've gotten into a discussion, an extensive discussion about the case?
No.
Have you in any way visited any of the websites, if there are any, dedicated to either Mr. Zimmerman or on behalf of Mr. Martin?
No.
Anything else in terms of the racial tensions other than the people commenting about it?
What do you mean?
What I mean is any other things that you can recall other than people commenting about the racial tensions?
Oh, no. It's just that.
And I apologize if you've already answered this, but the exposure you had was no TV other than just in passing? You're not one of those regular TV watchers
No.
at 6 o'clock, you watch the news and 6:30?
I avoid it like the plague, pretty much. I don't really follow news or any of that stuff.
How about in any other setting that you attend, any discussions about the case that impacted you or that you were exposed to? And I'm talking about not just in passing that there's a case going on, I'm talking about like an extensive discussion about the case.
No discussion.
Okay, nothing comes to mind?
No.
Okay. Do you remember any of the proceedings being discussed in any of these talk radio or other shows? And what I'm asking is in terms of what was going on in court, were there discussions about that at some point?
No.
Not
that I can recall.
Your exposure then would have been at the very early stages?
Correct. It was like the very beginning.
Okay. So you were not curious as to what was going on in the courtroom between them?
No.
Okay, all right. You got your jury summons 3-4 weeks ago. Did you say, oh, I potentially might be on this case, let me do some research on it, or let me find out what's going on?
No. I just got it in the mail and I was like, great.
Okay.
Pretty much.
All right. And you realize, as everybody does, in terms of when jury duty is, I would submit, a privilege, you know, in terms of we ask people to take time from their everyday jobs or lives and set it aside to serve as jurors, because that's part of our obligations as citizens of this great country and of this community. You agree with that concept?
For the most part, yes.
Okay, all right. And I realize most people do not get overly excited when they get that summons. Part of the things that I want to also discuss with you today is the court has made a determination that, and we're estimating how long the trial will take. We have estimated anywhere from 2 to possibly up to 4 weeks. So we're asking people to take time from their everyday lives and jobs and set aside and pay attention to the case and being able to dedicate the time necessary. Part of the process, too, is once we get a jury, the court has made a determination that the jury will be sequestered so that the media will be exposed, you will be exposed to media. Your contact will be limited. Can you agree to abide by that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any questions or concerns about that?
No.
Okay. Glad to have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
That Philip file, I guess is what it is that part of 104 whatever you said, 104.1?
Yes.
Okay. Did that individual ever express an opinion about the case? You said it was favorable to Mr. Martin, or?
The way I gathered, I believe he was probably more favorable towards Mr. Martin.
Okay. Did that sway you in any way in getting you to favor one side versus the other?
No, because I know him to be pretty biased on his opinions. So
You believe he's biased one side?
yeah, on most of everything I've heard.
Okay. Well, did that in any way turn you off in terms of against and in favor of Mr. Martin?
No, because everybody's entitled to their own opinion. So I just I listen more for entertainment purposes than anything
Okay.
else.
All right. If I may have a moment. Regarding the racial tensions that you mentioned, was that based on Philip File or 1.4 in terms of commentary, or was that just things you heard in the community?
Things I heard from the community, I guess. It wasn't from the radio.
Okay. Did when you heard that, did they attribute the cause or the source of the racial tensions to any particular group or individual?
No.
Okay. Further questions?
Thank you, Mr.
Have you gathered this information from the media, TV at all?
No, I don't follow the news at all.
Okay.
Ever.
And how about the newspaper?
No.
How about online in terms of the newspaper or TV stations at all?
No.
Any national news at all?
No. I
Okay.
try to stay name of his show.
Okay, I apologize, I couldn't read your writing. Tell me a little bit about that.
He's talk radio. I guess he's pretty popular at like around rush hour.
Okay,
He talks about current events, things like that.
and those would have been your two main sources?
Uninvolved, I guess.
I'm sorry,
I said I try to stay uninvolved.
uninvolved?
Mhm.
Okay. And tell me about, I'm not aware of 104.1, what kind of radio station? Is it a talk show type thing? or-
Yes, it's all talk radio.
Okay. And how often do you listen to that on the, is that all the time at like work? Or
No, it's
on
just
the-
like if I'm, if I happen to be in the car and it's around that time, I just pop it on,
Okay.
but not regularly.
And then Phillips Price, is it?
No, it's the Phillips file.
Phillips file.
Yes, that's
Martin, while on neighborhood watch, Mr. Zimmerman states that it was for self-defense.
yes,
Okay. And then you stated your sources was the radio?
yes.
Okay. And also the second part, I couldn't, Phillips something?
Oh, Jim Phillips on the Phillips file.
All right. Tell me, did you have any, in terms of how